In this video for Tech Training Lesson 3, we're going to talk about spreadsheet functions. We're going to go over some of the basics of how spreadsheet functions work, specifically in Google Sheets, but a lot of this applies for Microsoft Excel also. So the objective is going to be that we will use Google Sheets to do basic math operations and use the sum, average, and count formulas, as well as number formatting. So let's start by looking at this example spreadsheet. And for those of you who haven't attended the training, the link for this example spreadsheet can be found right here. So you can just pause the video and type that into your browser. If you go to this spreadsheet, you can see we've got some numbers here and some columns all ready to go. And then these are the instructions to start. So select cells A1 to I7, and we can right click to copy. And if we create a new sheet, we can right click to paste. And then we have our own copy of those numbers, so we don't need to edit the original. I'm going to change this to my name so that it's not confused with anyone else who's done the same thing. So we'll start by just looking at how the cells work with formulas. And I'll have you start by just typing 5 plus 10 in cell A1 and press enter. And you can see that it just stays as 5 plus 10, just like we were writing text in a word processor. But if you erase that and you actually type an equals sign and then the same thing, 5 plus 10, you're going to notice it's doing some different things. If you press enter, it actually just shows you the result of 5 plus 10. And that is how you can get spreadsheets to do math for you. If you type equals and then you type a math problem and press enter, it should give you the result of those math operations. So you can change what's in here by selecting the cell and then going up here in the function bar, and you can edit that math problem. So if I want to do 5 divided by 10, I can do that, and it would show the result there. So let's do one more. We can go back and edit it to say 5 times 10, and that's just a little star icon. And if you hover over it, you can see inside of the formula bar, it shows you what formula is happening, but then in the cell, it actually just shows you the value of 5 times 10. Okay, so that's how you can do some basic math within the cell. Now we're going to try doing some basic math using cell references. So I'm going to have you go to cell D2, press equals so that we're typing a function, and then I'm going to have you click on cell A2 right here. And you can see that because you pressed equals and then you clicked a cell, it is actually it put the value A2 in there, and if I press enter, you can see that the value displayed is actually just the same value that's in cell A, and I can change this value and it will automatically change this value because this value is just copying whatever is in cell A2. So we'll change that back to 50. So that's how you can use the equal sign and click other cells, and it will just return the value of whatever cell is in there. That's called a cell reference. You are referencing another cell within a formula. So we can also use these cell references to do math operations. So if you press equals and say A2 and then do the times sign and then B2 and press enter, you can see that we're multiplying the contents of A2 times B2, and the answer is, the result is 100, and that is displayed there. So I'm going to have you then just change that formula slightly, A2 times B2, and I'm going to have you multiply by C2, and you can see we've got 50 times 2 is 100 times 10 is 1,000. So it shows that value there. But if you might notice that in the header here, I've got A plus B times C Let's see if we can mirror that structure. So instead of this multiplying, I'm going to have a plus sign, A2 plus B2 times C2. And then because of the order of operations, it's actually multiplying first and then adding, but I want it to add first. And so I'm going to put parentheses in here so that it knows to add first and then multiply. And we can see that it's now adding 50 plus 2 to get 52, multiplying by 100 to get 520. So now it's doing what we wanted it to. And then again, if we change any of these values, it will automatically update right here. And this is really useful if the relationship between these is always going to be the same, but the values might change. You can use references, and it will automatically update the answer for you. Okay, so we've seen how you can use references, cell references, to do math based on the values in those cells. And now we're going to show you the first formula. We're going to press the equals sign again, and we're going to be in E2 here. And the formula is SUM. And you can do lowercase or uppercase, it doesn't really matter. SUM and then parenthesis. And as soon as you put the parenthesis, you might notice that it kind of gives you a little explanation of what the formula is. It shows an example of what it could look like. And right now it's telling me that I am entering value 1. And so I can click that, and then I can press the comma, and I can add another value, and a comma, and another value. So I can just separate different values by commas, and it will add them all together. Or what I usually do, if all of the values are in a row, I just click the first one and I drag to highlight the other two. And then I close the parenthesis and press enter. And so you can see that this sum formula is adding the values in all of those cells, 50 plus 2 plus 10 to give 62. So that's how the sum formula works. It just adds together all the values that are in there. You can separate those values by commas, or you can select multiple cells. And this colon in between just says I want to add together the values that are start at A2 and go all the way to C2. That's A2, B2, and C2, all of those cells. And now we're going to try the average formula. To do that, again, we press the equals sign, and then we start typing the word average. And you might notice these are some suggestions of what you might want to choose, and you can also just click on one to select it, but you can also just type it out and then type the parenthesis also. And then once I have, and I can edit it here, or I can edit it up in the function bar. But if I edit it up here, it kind of, this gets in the way a little bit, so I'm going to click back over here. So now I'm going to do the same thing to highlight. I click and hold down the click, and then drag over to select all 3 cells, and then I'm going to close the parenthesis and press enter. And this is giving the average of 50, 2, and 10. So it's adding them together and dividing by 3. And so that's how the average function works. Let's do the count function. That is by pressing equals and typing count, and then open parenthesis, select those 3 cells again, close the parenthesis, press enter, and this counts the number of number values in these cells. And we've got 1 number value, 2 number values, 3 number values, so it comes up with the number 3. Pretty straightforward. And you'll see in a second why it might be useful to count just the number values here, because this last function that formula that we're going to learn is the count A function or formula. So count, and you can see it's one of the options here, and it actually tells you exactly what it does. A count of the number of values in a data set. So count is the number of numeric values. Count A is the number of values. That means it can be a text value or a character value or a number value. It's just any non-blank cell. So I'm going to click on count A, and I'm going to do the same thing of highlighting these 3, closing the parenthesis, pressing enter. And there are still 3 values. They just also happen to be numeric values, so they both get the same answer here. Okay, I'm now going to show you a really powerful tool that Spreadsheet spreadsheets have built in, Excel as well as Google Sheets, and that is the fill feature. So you might be looking at all of these spaces and think, oh man, do we have to retype those formulas again and again and again? And the answer is no. And it's because we use these cell references, and because the spreadsheet function knows that we often want to do the same operation for multiple cells, multiple rows in a column, it gives us this option right here. In the lower right hand corner, there's a little kind of square, and if you hover your cursor over it, your cursor turns to a plus sign. I'm going to go ahead and click on that plus sign and drag down one cell, and you can kind of see a little dotted selecting thing, and I'm going to let go, and it automatically takes that formula that we started with here, A2 plus B2 in parentheses times C2, and it applies it one row down, but it changes the cell references to A3, B3, and C3 instead of A2, B2, and C2, because it knows that I probably want to add these three cells to get the answer here and not these three cells like I did up here. So it automatically changed these cell references and we get a new answer, 81,431. You can see that this has a dollar sign in front of it, so this one ended up with the dollar sign, but say I don't want a dollar sign. What I might do is go up here in Google Sheets, and in Excel it's a different place. In Excel it would be in the home panel, or you could go to format and then cell format in Excel. But these are easy places to change the format of that number. Say we do want the dollar sign, but we want pennies too, cents. We can increase the decimal places right here. There, we've got a more exact number. We could increase the decimal place even more, or we could have just a whole number. Maybe we don't want the dollar sign. Or actually clicking on the dollar sign puts it in a normal dollar format. Maybe we just want a different option. Maybe we want it in financial notation. Maybe we want it in just a regular number. Maybe we want it in a regular number with no decimal places. These are the places where you can change how the number looks, but the number is still the same underneath. It's just rounding it and displaying it at in certain ways. So the number doesn't change, the way that you see the number is changing. And then for all of these formulas, we can do the same thing as this one in the fill down. And actually, you can select multiple cells, multiple formulas, and you can drag all of them to fill down at the same time. And so you can kind of review those formulas, and you can see that it changed to be adding up, summing these three values instead of the values above it. Same for the average. It's averaging these three values. It's counting these three values, and it's using the count A function on those three values also. Here's where it can get a little tricky when you fill formulas down. Say I want to fill this down the rest of the way here in these green cells. I'm actually getting an error here, and it gives me a hint what's going on. The add parameter expects number values, but no is a text and cannot be coerced into a number. So what we're doing here is we're trying to add A4 plus B4, but A4 is a word, not a number. So that's having a problem. So I would need to go in and edit that by removing the A4. And then this defaults to a 0 value times 15. 0 times 15 is 0. But actually these formulas, it's okay if you use them with words. It'll just ignore the word, I think. Yeah, so they work okay. Although I'm noticing that this percent is kind of giving these weird values. So I'm actually going to change this. I don't want it to be a percent. I want it to be a number. And same here. I want this to be a number, but I don't need those decimal places. So I'm going to remove those decimal places. So we've been looking at how to do mathematical operations, use these cell references, and also how to use these four basic formulas in Excel. And we've also talked a little bit about how to format these numbers. These ones especially, have all these decimal places. Don't really want all that clutter. It's not really giving me a whole lot more information, so I'm going to change that to a number, and I'm actually just going to round it to the 10th decimal place. I'm going to do that there and here. So that makes it a little cleaner, and if, say we did want these in dollars, you can actually highlight multiple cells and make them dollars like that. So these are some of the reasons why spreadsheets can be so powerful, because if you do one formula and then you drag it to fill that formula down, you can save a lot of time if you need to repeat the same addition on a lot of different columns or a lot of different rows. And this formula can be dragged either way. But just as an example, if I drag it to the right, we're going to run into a problem, and I'll show you why. So this makes it the sum of B2 to D2. So instead of A to C, because I shifted it one to the right, I filled it one to the right, it actually shifted all of the cells that I was referencing one to the right. So I need to be careful and review that formula to make sure that it's shifting in the direction that I wanted to. So I'm going to undo that. But that's another thing to be aware of when you're filling these formulas down. Okay, so now that we've gone over all of the how to do the cell references, how to do these 4 basic formulas, I'll actually ask you to practice them in these yellow cells right here. And one last thing to note, if earlier when we were editing these, I had you click on a cell to put in the cell reference. You can also type it in. If you know that that is cell C2, you can just write cell C2, and it doesn't need to be uppercase either. It can be lowercase, and it knows which cell you're referring to. So that is all of the content that we're going to cover right now. We talked about how to do basic math operations, how to use cell references, and how to use the sum, average, count, and count A functions. And with a little more experience, you might start seeing more opportunities to use these to save time, especially with that fill feature to be able to take that formula and apply it to a lot of different cells very quickly. Hope this was helpful, and I hope you take the time to practice on your own. And I'll actually go ahead and do these formulas for you right now so you can check your answer, but before you watch me do it, I hope you pause the video and do it on your own so that you can be sure that you do understand it without anyone giving you the answer. So here I'm going to go through it. This isn't going to work because that's a text, so I'm just going to leave it as A plus B. Oops. There. And say I want that to be a whole number. And then I can actually take these and fill these down. I'm going to have one error here because I'm trying to add a text here. So I'll just erase that, and I'll just multiply these. And I want this to be a whole number. There we go. And you can notice here that the count function comes up with a different value for count A function if there's a blank. Actually, the blank cell will be treated the same by both, but if there's text. So count is telling us there's only one numeric value in these 3, but there are 2 values in general, right? There's only one blank cell. So anytime that there's a text, or if there's a text or character, then these 2 are going to return different values. Okay, hope you were able to get these on your own, and see you next time.